can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I am clinging. Since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? It's a beautiful song, and I love it. I've got playing it again this week and listening to it. And then I found a couple things here. I heard my mom asking our neighbor for some salt. We had salt at home, so I asked her why she was asking. She told me. They don't have much money, and they sometimes ask us for things. So I asked for something small that wouldn't burden them. I want them to feel as we needed them too. That way, it will be much easier for them to ask us for anything they need. She didn't need it, but she was making it easier for them whenever that they did. And both of these is kind of about our actions and reactions and stuff, and I love this one. The light turned yellow just in front of him. He did the right thing and stopped at the crosswalk, even though he could have beaten the red light by accelerating through the intersection. The tailgating woman behind him was furious. She honked her horn, screaming in frustration as she had missed her chance to get through the intersection. As she was still in mid-rant, she heard a tap on her window and looked up into the face of a very serious police officer. The officer ordered her to exit her car with her hands up. He took her to the police station where she was searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. After a couple of hours, the policeman approached the cell, opened the door. She was escorted back to the booking desk where the arresting officer was waiting with her personal effects. He said, "I am very sorry for the mistake. You see, I pulled up behind you, behind your car while you was blowing your horn, giving the guy in the front of you the finger and cursing him, and I noticed, what would Jesus do bumper sticker on your car? Choose life, the license plate holder. Follow me to Sunday school bumper sticker and the chrome-plated Christian fish emblem on the trunk. So naturally, I assumed you had stolen the car." So let your actions correspond with your advertisements. And with that, Brother Jason.
Good morning, everybody. Say, if you'd sit on this side, I wouldn't have to turn back and forth this morning. I know. We're all stuck in. Just kind of give me a panoramic. All right. We'll be all right. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Good.
Blessed.
Blessed, highly favored. Anything else you want to add to that?
Saved on the way to heaven.
Okay. Those are all good then. Huh? You didn't hung it no way flip. I thought he was talking about you this morning too. It was out of the Visa Laser newspaper. He found that. All right. Well, I guess we can get started this morning. I'm glad all 5 of you showed up. It's really kind of ironic. This is one of our lowest groups, but yet what we're going to talk about today is Hebrews 10:25. I'll let Sylvia get that up there for you. I'm trying to be proper this morning. I'm on video, Nikki, okay? Mevo's recording me. I heard one snicker. But no, Hebrews 10:25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. All this week, because it was like, I think it was Monday, Keith, when you messaged, can you teach Sunday school this Sunday? I'm like, yeah. So I sat and I've been trying to study all week and couldn't come up with anything. And this hit me yesterday. I don't know why out of the blue, but God does me that way sometimes. He'll wait until the last minute and then just be like, oh, hey, you might want to look at this. So this is what he gave me. And I was thinking about my life. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound really controversial real quick. Just kind of follow me here for a second, but I hate going to church. I know, like I said, it sounds controversial, but I do. The routine of going to church, getting up and feeling the obligation of having to get up and go just because it's something that we do on Sundays. I hate that feeling. You know, the idea of we have to go to church. I figured I would explain that for a second before I just ended it. I hate going to church. You know, I love coming together with the body. I just hate the routine of feeling obligated like I have to go to church because that's not what it's about. There's so much more to the assembling of ourselves together than a Sunday routine to make people think we're doing good through the week. At one time in my life, that was me. I was that guy. I showed up at church on Sunday, had my pretty little suit pants and shirt and tie and jacket, all that good stuff on. Hair slicked back because I thought I was cool with long hair. You're allowed to laugh at that too. But if anybody knew what I was out doing Saturday night, it's a whole different story. But it was keeping up appearances. I'd show up at church, everybody thought I was doing great. You know, and the routine of just, I guess, people's approval is what I was looking for. Not so much proving what I was doing in secret, but, you know, as long as they thought I was doing good publicly, I was good to go. Knowing the whole time that God's seen it all anyway, so it really didn't matter what people thought. But there was a time after that I quit going to church because I hated that routine, that feeling of going to church. I just hated feeling like I had to be there. I hated feeling like I needed people's approval of my life. And that's the reason I would go to church on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever day it was I was showing up, was because I was trying to gain people's approval to show that I was a good Christian and keeping up appearances. So I quit going. I was like, well, I'm done wasting my time. I didn't have a really good relationship with God anyways because I was doing whatever I wanted to throughout the week and then trying to, make my way out of it on Sundays. So I just quit. And I've noticed something about, and I know this is probably a verse that we've heard a lot of times, and it's talked about in different ways, and we see it as just coming together for church, but there's a lot to assembling ourselves together. It's more than just a social event. It's not just getting together to, hey, how you doing this week? Did your week go good? What you got planned this week? Well, God bless you. Have a good week. It's not just getting together to talk to each other. There's so much more to assembling ourselves together that we can benefit from this if we get past the whole idea of it being just a social event. Yeah, it's great to get to see each other on Sundays because a lot of us, we don't get to really communicate throughout the week. Except for poor Kate, she has to deal with me every day. I feel sorry for her. So does Elizabeth. She sympathizes. But there are, so it is good to get to see each other once, twice a week and really, catch up throughout the week, what's been going on, how's everything been going. Have you guys ever heard the sayings, there's safety in numbers? And Keith, I'm going to kind of go on here, and if I get off track or get kind of sideways here for a second, correct me, okay? But as I was going through watching Jesus' ministry, there's very few things I've ever seen him do alone. Now, I would see him go pray by himself. He would go up on the mountain sometimes, but most of the time, anytime I really got to looking at it, if he was going into doing miracles or any of his ministry, he had the disciples with him. Even if he only had 2 or 3 that he would take to the side and take just them with him, he still almost always that I've noticed, unless, like I said, I missed something, had somebody with him. There was safety in numbers. He even made the statement, if 2 or 3 are gathered, there I'll be also. There's something about assembling ourselves together that, one, it strengthens us. Iron sharpens iron, but 2, it gives us safety in numbers. So we're not as easy as a target to get picked off one by one like we are when we're by ourselves. huge defense mechanisms in life is isolation. If I feel like I'm under attack or I feel like I'm vulnerable, I'll isolate myself. I'll get myself off to the side, I'll go lock myself up in the bedroom, I'll go take a ride in the car by myself, something just to get me by myself. And I've found that as much as that makes me feel safer sometimes, it makes me an easier target. When I'm by myself, I have nobody there to encourage me, nobody there to not so much pat me on the back, tell me it's going to be okay, because I don't need pity. Usually most of the time I just need somebody to tell me quit being stupid and straighten up. Thank God for Jimmy, he's that person in my life most of the time that when I start acting stupid, he's like, hey, stop acting stupid. But that's the kind of, that's what I need. Not everybody needs that. Okay, so if you see somebody doing something stupid, don't call them stupid. It may not be what they need. I, on the other hand, I'm that guy. But I found that all those times I was isolating myself, it just made me an easier target for things like depression and anxiety. Those are two things that I've fought with really, really severely in my life. That seems like every time it creeps up, it catches me by surprise, as much as I know the devil's going to try to use it against me because I'm, I guess, vulnerable to it would be a way to put it. You know, almost like kryptonite for Superman. That's one of those things that it hits me every time. Even though I know to watch for it. Usually I can catch it early, and when I catch it, I'm good to go. But there's times that it sneaks up. But I find it harder for it to sneak up on me when I'm surrounded by other believers. It's usually when I'm off by myself that it wants to kind of come in like, oh, well, let's just feel sorry about it. Well, this is what happened yesterday. Or what are you going to do about this tomorrow? And Jimmy's explained it really well the other day. I love how he put it, that depression is what's happened in the past and anxiety is what's happening in the future, and you can't really change either one of them. So all you're doing is sitting there worrying about stuff you can't change. That are anxiety worrying about stuff that hasn't happened yet, that may never happen. But yet your mind will sit there and go on and on and on and overanalyze and focus so much on what could happen that you miss what is happening. But I'm really getting into this verse because it talks about the assembling of ourselves together. But then at the part of it, it talks about exhorting one another. That's where we get the benefit of the whole safety in numbers thing. It's like a flock of sheep where we're together. One, we're harder to get to, but yet we can lift each other up. We can build each other up. When one person stumbles, you've got somebody on either side of you to help pick you up. There's a lot of times that you may not be able to pick yourself up. It's hard sometimes. You get knocked down and dust yourself off and get back up. Sometimes you're going to need help. Like I said, it's really kind of ironic that we're talking about this today with being one of our lower numbered groups this morning. So I really hope everybody's watching on YouTube or Mevo or whatever's recording it. But it's not just about coming into this building. As much as we think this is the church, this is just a building, it's a representation of where we get to come and praise and get fed and rest and get healed up and patched up from the attacks throughout the week. But this isn't the church. We are the church, the people, that's the body. This is going to kind of sound morbid and weird, but it's how my mind works. But I don't think your arm would function very well if you removed it from your body. You got to follow me here for a second, but I mean, just get the image of your arm being completely removed from your body and then trying to pick something up with it. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Or trying to walk without a foot. You might make it a little far, but you're going to limp. You're probably going to stumble a few times. That foot can't function on its own without being attached to the rest of the body. Same with your arm. It can't function without being attached to the body. So all those times that I thought I was doing the whole superhero Christian thing, wearing the cape, and separating myself from people, thinking that I could take on the devil by myself, I didn't function properly. y'all can act like I'm the only one that's done that. That's okay. Nah. Drop my bottle lid. So I don't need it anyways. It's just something else for me to fidget with. But when we gather together, not just in this place, but anywhere that we gather as a body, there's so many benefits to that. I mean, we'd already talked about the safety in numbers part, but then there's the whole lifting each other up part that gets you through the week. Then there's the whole when an attack comes. Now, I'm not just talking about the safety in numbers as far as hoping an attack doesn't hit you because it's a larger group. There's a particular type of fish in the ocean. I can't remember what the name of the type of fish is, but they're very small fish. I mean, usually not much bigger than the size of your hand. But they school by the thousands. And they move in perfect unison as they're swimming in this school to where they look like one body. Most of the time, the school of fish doesn't get attacked by larger predators because from a distance it looks like a large animal. Because they're so close together when they're swimming and in such unison and movement that you can't discern one from the other. That's where the safety in numbers part comes in as far as not being picked off because the attack's not coming. But there's going to be times when the attack still comes, even when you're in a group. But when you get that benefit of when you're in a group, you're not fighting it by yourself. Now, using a lot of examples this morning, so you're just going to have to try to follow my rabbit trails. Does anybody watch the movie 300 about the Spartan army? I love the way they have their battle formation set up and the way the Spartans done it. Because they usually carried a sword on their side, a shield in one hand and a spear in the other. The spear was for poking and throwing, and then when they got close quarters, they went to their sword. But their shield served a bigger purpose. Because the shield wasn't to protect them. When they were in formation, the shield was not protecting them, it was protecting the person to their side. It was protecting the person beside them. And then the person on the other side was protecting them. They fought so well together and in these battle formations that they were so able. Let me stop from the line here for a second, get tongue-tied. But they functioned so well as a unit, and there was so much trust developed through that they weren't worried about whether their back was covered because they knew the person to their side had a shield in front of them. They knew that I can depend on him with my life because I'm covering somebody else. If we could learn just a little bit of that mentality as a Christian body, as the church, where we know that I can trust you with my life, that if something happens and I'm left unaware or uncovered, that you've got me covered. I'm going to pause there and let you think about that. There's very few people that I can honestly say I trust with my life. And I'm not proud of that. I'm just admitting it, I guess. But there are very few people that I would lay my life in their hands and not be concerned about what would happen next. Physically, I'll make sure I put a differentiation in there that what I want to talk about. But physically, there's not many people that I trust with my life. Spiritually, there might be about the same amount, maybe a few more, that I think are, no matter what, have me covered. But I shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be that way.
I'd say most people are that way.
I'd imagine most people are that way. But what causes us to be that way? This is what really kind of racked my brain this whole week, is what causes us not to trust one another spiritually. And honestly, I think a lot of it comes from the devil doing his job. If he can divide us and keep us separated and from realizing our true potential as one body, we don't function. Or not properly. Like I said, physically, if I can stop you from being able to use one of your limbs, that just makes you an easier target. If I can disable one part of your body, the rest of your body's going to struggle to function the rest of the way. Or properly the way it should. Spiritually, we're the same way. If the enemy can come in and cause any type of separation or any type of, really trying to think of a way to put this because it's all jumbled in my head because it all came so fast yesterday. I really don't want to mess it up. But if he can put a wrench in the gears, I guess would be the best way to put it. If he can cause one little sprocket to go out of place, he can shut the whole thing down. As far as our ability to function and work properly together. My next question would be how do we develop that trust spiritually? Because trust is something that's usually just like respect, it's earned, it's not just given. You have to work for it, in a sense. But the best way I've learned to trust somebody is to get to know them better, spend more time with them. I mean, really develop a relationship with them to where I know how they're thinking, I know how they're processing things, I know what they're going to do in a situation, I know how they're going to react. Lord, this thing sounded like it went nuts. Anyway, rabbit trail. Or squirrel, whatever you want to call it. I get distracted easily. Fair warning. But it's that relationship building that causes us to trust more. It causes us to really be able to depend and rely on people is when we get to know each other better. And how do we do that? We have to assemble ourselves together. We have to spend time together. You're not going to develop a relationship with somebody long distance. I don't care how good AT&T is. You may get to know them, but the only thing you're getting to know is what they're telling you versus what reality might be. So I've been watching this show recently. And this ties in here, and don't judge me for watching this show. If any of you have watched it, it's not a bad show, it really isn't. It's just not something that you'd think I would typically watch. But it's called The Circle on Netflix. It's a social experiment reality show. They take these people and they put them all together in an apartment building, and it's a competition to see who wins, but the only interaction they have with each other is through social media. They never see face to face, they never talk voice to voice, it's all through chat messages and whatever they want on their profile. So you might be talking to somebody you think is Johnny from New York, and it could be Jessica from San Diego or something. You don't know who you're talking to, but the only way you're developing a relationship is only by what they're telling you. Because they're not spending any real time together. And I love it because there's so many different ways that you can take that as far as how that plays out. But honestly, how well do we really know each other? I'm just talking about us in this room. How well do we really know each other? How much of our interaction is in person? How much of our interaction is online? How much of it's not face to face? Because, there's a few of you that, I see you pretty often. Those that are on the praise team, or Tim and Kim, their family, their family. Kate, I see almost every day because I work with her. But other than that, outside of my close circle, how well do I really know some people that go to church here, other than what I see online? Because I've not taken the time myself to develop a relationship with them. It falls back on us individually. You can't blame anybody else for not knowing somebody. If I really wanted to know you, then I've got to make the effort to put in the time to get to know you. But as Christians, that should be our desire, is to get closer together as a body, regardless of, who, what, where, when, or what we think about it. Because, one, you probably don't even know. What you think you know, you don't know. If you're relying on what somebody else has told you about somebody, or what you've heard about somebody on Facebook, base that on your relationship with that person, you're probably wrong. And I say probably, because that may not always be the case, but as staying in communication with people that may not live locally, stuff like that. But honestly, the way I see Facebook and other social media, it's a drug. Just like any other type of drug you have out there, once you start on it, you're going to get addicted to it, and the next thing you know, you can't get away from it. If you don't believe me, turn your phone off for 24 hours. Let me know how you feel the next day. I mean, the same. I've tried it. As much as I don't like Facebook, as much as I don't get on there, if I turn my phone off for more than a couple hours, I'm usually starting to get the, where's my phone? I gotta have my phone. It's not dinged in the last 10 minutes. I'm missing something somewhere.
Jason, at work, go in the break, the lunchroom and stuff, especially at dinner, there can be 10, 15 people, in there. And before Facebook and everything, everybody was sitting in there talking about everything going on, da-da-da-da-da. You've got 15 people in there, at least 13 of them. And people sitting right beside them, they're sitting there on the phone, not talking to each other, nothing. They're just sitting there going through their phones. Maybe one or two sitting there.
Well, I'll tell on my family because I don't care to their mind. They got to deal with me regardless. But I mean, we'll have like family gatherings, and all of us be down there, 10, 13, however many of us are there, and at any given time look up and everybody's sitting there.
Yeah.
All in the same room.
Yep.
But every one of us looking at something on our phones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we don't even realize we're doing. It's crept up on us. That's why I say it's a drug, because you start out with one little like, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you can't live without it. Like I said, if you don't think that applies to you, don't listen or whatever, or try it and turn your phone off for 24 hours and see how it goes for you. But we've become so dependent on that, especially with this last year, with quarantines and social distancing. That was the only way we really had communication or interaction with people, was through social media or texting or calling. There was no real face-to-face for most people. No real face-to-face interaction. I think that was part of the tactic. If you can separate a body of people, they're easier to influence. If you get a body of people that are joined together and spend time together and know each other and have that trust, like we talked about with Spartans, so much trust in the person beside of you that you put your life in their hands and not be concerned, it's harder to influence that group because they've already established a foundation. And we as Christians, we've got to really develop that as a body. I mean, we talk about it here with just our church. We can just focus right here in this local part of it, but I mean, it goes beyond that. But as far as just establishing a foundation, if we could learn to really know each other. I think we've been doing a great job of that here recently too with our Sunday Fun Days, because that's outside of we act a certain way in this building, whether you want to admit it or not. When you come in here, you put on a mask. This is how you act. And that may not be a fake mask. It might just be another copy of your face. But we act a specific way while we're in here because that's how we think we have to act. Because we have to be proper. Don't you ever just get tired of that junk? That's why I love our Sunday Fun Days or the field days and stuff that we've had here the last couple of weeks. Is we get out there, we cut up, we have fun, we get to know each other even more than what we do in here. I found out that Barry can talk for several hours at a time without breathing. He's not here, so I kind of feel bad about talking about him, but he'll admit to it when he gets here. And I've also come to know that Keith is one of the most patient people I've ever met. And that was all in one day. I don't know how you done it, but kudos to you, Keith. You're a better man than I am. But as funny as that is, I mean, we really, during that time, we did get to develop a further relationship as far as knowing each other better, or knowing other people a little bit better. Myself, because I still stayed pretty quiet the whole time I was out there. That's just, I'm not really usually a loud person unless I really get in a certain situation or excited about something. But it's those times like that, like I said, it doesn't always have to be what we think as far as a certain procedure or routine or having to act a particular way in church to be proper. But there's a lot of different ways that you can get to know people. And I'm not saying you need to go find somebody in the church that you don't know, sit them aside and have a one-on-one for 3 hours and try to get to know their name, date of birth, social security number, blood type, children, grandma, grandpa's names, all that. No. just developing a relationship as far as where we get to know each other just a little bit better, even if it's just one thing a day, where we get to the point to where we function better as a body, because I know that if, say I'm having trouble with a certain thing in my life, I know Keith has dealt with it before, I know that at that point I can go to Keith because he knows how to handle it. But there may be something I face that Keith doesn't know about, but Lynn does. Or that Lynn doesn't know about, but Helen does. And because I've developed a relationship with these people, and I know the areas that they've had in their life as far as the experiences they've had, that if I'm encountering something like that, I know I can go to them. But then it also comes back on those of us that people are coming to. And I know that Keith will understand this when I say this, but when somebody comes to you, you don't go tell somebody else about it the next second. That's called gossip, and gossip is sin.
That's why most people don't trust people, because
Exactly.
it happened to them.
Because that has happened.
It has happened to them.
That's where we, as mature, responsible adults and Christians, mature Christians, learn that things like that are private. You don't have to go tell everybody about JoJo's drinking problem, because JoJo's trying to get help.
But I think once you, like you said, you develop a relationship with that person, you will automatically, well, I would think, you'll be able to discern, hey, they might be okay to tell this to. Like, if you know them,
And
they're
that's-
not talking about somebody else's business to you.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with that, as far as like where I've developed, I've mentioned Keith, Lynn, and Helen, but as far as developing relationships with them, I know if I go to Keith with something, I know he's not going to go run his mouth about it. And that doesn't really sound proper to say it that way, but I know he's not going to. Because he knows that that's between me and him. Now, if it's something that he thinks he needs to tell somebody about, like it may be something he needs to tell Pastor about, I trust Keith enough to make that decision. But if I go to him with something and he feels like he has to tell somebody else about it because it's an issue, that I trust him enough that if he has to, he's going to. But if not, I know he's going to help me. And we should all be able to develop that relationship with one another. Now, I'm not saying, the first person that walks in the door, you go say hi to him, introduce to him, you get to know him, then you tell him your whole life story or everything you're dealing with, because that may not be the proper thing because you've not built a relationship yet. But today's whole thing would be about relationship building as a body. It's beneficial. It's helpful. It will help you grow. And I think so often we just allow our natural way of thinking influence our spiritual relationship building, to where we think if I like so-and-so's post on Facebook because it said something about going to church Sunday, then all of a sudden me and them know each other or what, and I can tell them my whole life story. It happens.
Be careful, it might be on Facebook.
Just be careful because it may come out on Facebook too. But really, just the whole point of this is just take the time to get to know each other. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a serious sit-down conversation, but just in passing, just talk to each other. Really get to know each other. Spend that face-to-face interaction time that you hear really interacting. I'll use myself as an example because I don't like to talk about nobody else, but there's so many times that when we're here, like I said earlier, having to act a certain way or feel like I have to be proper or, behave a particular way that I don't interact. I'll look at you, I'll make eye contact, I'll smile, I'll say yes or no, and I've heard nothing that you've said to me. If I'm being totally honest, I've done it. I won't speak for nobody else, but don't act like y'all ain't done it either. But my goal on this, with bringing this whole thing out since I'm talking so much about myself, is to stop doing that. To actually be involved. To actually interact with people, that when they walk by me, I'm not just smiling and shaking my head and nodding and then moving on to the next thing because I'm so focused on something else that I don't have time to hear what you're saying. That's my goal in this. And if you feel like you want to do the same thing, then maybe I might have gotten something across today. I don't know. If not, then just hold on. Jimmy will be out here in about 25 minutes and we'll get church started. But I think that's where I'm going to wrap up for the day. Keith, you got anything you want to add?
Just one thing, you're talking about Jesus being with somebody all the time. I've been sitting here going through them. The best I can think of, the woman at the well is the only time it was Jesus and one person with nobody else around. I think him and her at the well is the only time that it's mentioned that other people was not around.
Yeah, as far as his ministry part goes, yeah, I know there was a time when he went up on the mountain and prayed by himself when they were out on the boat. But then there's the other time, but every other time I can think of, other than that you mentioned it, 'cause yeah. But we're not meant or made to function alone.
No.
I mean, even if you go back all the way to the beginning of creation, when God made Adam, he realized that Adam was lonely, so he made Eve to be a companion, because he did not want Adam to be alone. I mean, if that's the way God felt about the first man and woman, I'd imagine he still feels the same way about the rest of us. We're not meant to function alone. I'm not just talking about in a marital aspect, but as far as just a body functioning together, that relationship. I mean, he even prayed, let them be one as we are one. His intentions was for us to be one body. And it's even how it worked in the upper room when they were in one mind and one accord, when they were together and functioning in one focus, is when the promise was released. It's when the Holy Spirit got to come down. It's when power was given to him. That's when the whole world changed. But what's it take to get back to that one mind, one accord? I'd imagine after spending the time they spent in the upper room, that 120 that was still there, I imagine they probably got to know each other pretty well. You don't get to know, I mean, you don't get to sit in a room with 120 people and not get to know who's around you. I mean, unless you're there for maybe 5 minutes. Well, was it 10 days that they were there, Keith? In the upper room? Waiting?
Longer than that, I think, was
Was it longer than 10 days?
You remember how many?
Because it was 40 days to the ascension, and I thought it was another 10 days to Pentecost. Like I said, I could be wrong. Did you Google it?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about,
That is one good thing. Like I said, they're good tools.
How long?
Because I thought it was 40 days from
Okay.
resurrection to ascension, and 10 days to
Okay.
Pentecost. Okay. So yeah. How many we got in here today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 14, not counting me. I didn't count the baby. So, I mean, multiply that by 10, roughly. 120 people. Spend 10 days in this room with 120 people. Tell me you don't get to know anybody. But anyway, that's where we develop that relationship, is just getting to spend time with one together. If you don't hang out and participate in our Sunday fun days when we have them, shame on you. I'm joking. Sometimes things happen. I know that. But it's really a good time. And it's more so than just having fun with relationship building. Like I said, I've learned things about Barry and Keith this last Sunday that I didn't know.